Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Wolf, and Lower Paxton Township's manager, and I will briefly summarize tonight's business meeting prior to the supervisors conducting business. This evening, there will be a ceremonial activity with Something Good for Lower Paxton Township. VFW Post 148 will be providing donations to the Lower Paxton Township Public Service personnel, including police, fire, and EMS. Certainly, it's very much appreciated by the Board of Supervisors and our public safety personnel that the VFW Post is making the donation and thanking them for their service. Under old business, we have action on an appointment to the Historic Committee, followed by action on a settlement agreement and general release between the Township and David Spots, which is followed by action on amendments proposed to the actuarial assumptions of the police and non-uniform employee pension plans, which is followed by Ordinance 1718, amending the residential retirement district of Lower Paxton Township zoning ordinance, and then Ordinance 1801, which establishes an on-lot sewage management program. Those are the items of old business. Under new business, there is a change order to the sanitary sewer mini basin contract with Michael F. Ronca and Son for the Beaver Creek 4A, B, and C mini basin. There's action on bids for the 2018 roadway paving project. There is resolutions authorizing the acquisition of temporary and/or permanent easements to facilitate the Claremont Storm Sewer System project, and there is one preliminary final subdivision plan for Dorothy Wilkerson at 4902 Orchard Street. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes my summary of tonight's business meeting agenda. The supervisors are at the podium and ready to conduct business.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Board of Supervisors to order, and we'll call upon Mr. Hawk to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes from the November 13th, 2017 meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of November 13th, 2017 budget workshop minutes as presented and circulated.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I do want to announce that prior to this meeting, the board met to receive information from the township manager on a number of items. The board also met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss a couple of employee personnel matters that could result in disciplinary action. And with that, we will now entertain public comment on any item that is not on the agenda this evening. Does anybody from the public wish to address us on a matter not on the agenda? Good evening.
John Trish, 600 Prince Street. As those of you that were at the last meeting, I came up because it wasn't being televised. So I went back on the rebroadcast so I could see what I missed, because I was very interested in the trash issue. And it was nothing but a 1960s static and gibberish. And I was wondering if, since we now have a public information officer or community officer or whatever you want, is it possible for us to task that person with make sure that the individuals like me having trouble getting around can sit at home and watch these meetings without wondering why you're doing what you're doing? Because on February 2nd, you hired a special counsel at the very last minute of the meeting, and I haven't seen anything anywhere to indicate what that was for. I mean, obviously, you're going to say it was a personnel matter, and it's nobody's business. But if we're paying them, I think we ought to at least know something that they're doing. And hopefully the young lady that is going to be our information officer make sure that we're seeing what you guys are saying. Thank you.
Yes, we, as you know, we have installed new equipment here in the supervisor's meeting room, and there have been some bugs as you have with any new system, which did result in part of the last meeting not being aired on the rebroadcast. So hopefully, we've now corrected that, and that will not be a problem going forward.
It was being rebroadcast, but every other word was bleeped, and it was static in lines. I mean,
I saw it. You're right. There,
Yeah.
there was a glitch. We got to work that out.
Yeah, there definitely was a glitch in the taping process or the recording process, which, as I've mentioned, hopefully has been worked out and will not have the problem with this meeting. Does anybody else wish to address the board? Yes, sir.
Honorable Township Board members. My
Could
name
you
is
give
Nick-
us your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Nick Barrelette, and my address is 4905 Harmon Drive.
Okay.
For those of you not familiar with it, I'm right off of Earl Drive. I've lived here since 2000 for approximately 18 years. In February of 2017, my residents started experiencing a significant increase in usage of my basement sump pump. My wife and I have lived here for 18 years and never had our sump pump run the way it has in the past year, unless it heavily rained. At the time, we suspected the increase was due to rain, snow, or large amounts of normal water table in the ground. You have to go back to last year. It's very much like the way it is now or today. Our sump pump has been running every 30 seconds to 4 minutes for the past year. This is occurring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. After about 2 months, I checked with my neighbors to see if they were experiencing the same problem. They were not, mainly because my house sits further back from the street than my neighbors do. I finally reached out to the Township Sewer Authority because they had been doing work on the street behind our house, and I suspected it was related to the work. Tim Nolt of the Sewer Authority came out to investigate the sump pump problem and suspected that it was not sewer water related, but agreed to have the water tested, and I commend him for that. The results of the test determined that there was no sewage in the water of my sump pump. However, the timing of the work, my groundwater problem, is no coincidence, especially since I never had a water problem in 18 years. I was advised to contact Public Works because it may be the storm drain that is in front of my house that may be leaking under my house and seems to have running water in it at all times of the year, even when it's not raining. I eventually reached out to Jeff Klein at Public Works as well as Suez Water Company, trying to exhaust all avenues. Suez came out and did some testing and determined that there was not a water leak. Later, Mr. Klein eventually came out and investigated. After several months, he determined that the pipe is most likely not leaking, although it is very old, more than at least 18 years old, and was never replaced, but stated when they ran a camera through the pipe, he could see a fair amount of water getting into the drain from the outside of the drain. He did patch up the drain in the street, but advised me that the drain is my responsibility after the first 5 feet. This drain handles all of my street water and the water from Earl Drive. That's a tremendous amount of water. That doesn't seem very fair for me to have to pay for this, especially since you replaced a storm drain at the other end of the street less than 5 years ago. But that's not really why I'm here. I'm here because I have a water problem. As a result of this water problem, my wife and I are afraid to travel because in the event the power goes off, and I hate to tell you, the power went off last summer. It went off for 45 minutes, and my son and I were filling a bucket of 5 gallons every minute and a half to 2 minutes. Eventually, I was able to, let me retract a little bit, I'm sorry, until the power came back on. Finally, after 7 months in September of 2017, I emailed the township manager, George Wolf, because my problem was still not going away and nothing was changing despite a few weeks of no rain. Even when it was not raining, it was still going off every 5 to 7 minutes. I had requested reimbursement for my expenses related to the water problem, but more importantly, for the problem to be solved, both of which were denied. George Wolf sent the sewer director, Bill Weaver, who came out and inspected the property. And his suggestion to me was, probably better sell your house and move. It's easy for me to put my head in the sand and pretend it's not there. But on days like this and weeks like this and for the past year, all I have is a sump pump running, and I timed it this morning, every 37 seconds. I've replaced my sump pump. I had to buy a generator. I bought a backup sump pump. Imagine your house that you've lived in for the past 18 years, all of a sudden having a water problem and no one willing to help fix it. The township did its job and came out and looked and inspected, but no one wants to help me fix it. HRG recently saw the property and recommended a clay dam or a trench be built along the storm drain. At this point, as I conclude, everyone, including all of your staff for Lower Paxton Township, suspect that the water that was normally draining into the old sewer pipes, which I understand why you had to replace them. And I commend you for doing that, by the way. Everyone on your staff suspects that the water was normally draining into your old sewer pipes has found a new avenue because it can no longer enter the sewer pipes, and unfortunately, it found its way underneath my house. I did not cause this problem, and I need your help in getting this matter fixed. I don't have the money, the expertise, or equipment to fix something of this magnitude that I believe was created by the repairs of the sewer. Mike.
George, is this an issue that can be addressed as we go into our new stormwater management program?
It may well be an issue that can be addressed at that point. It's not one that I know of a solution, a municipal solution at this point in time. Everything that has been explained by Mr. Barrelette is completely accurate. We have encountered this in multiple locations in the township. Mr. Weaver can attest to that, as the sewer system is tightened up and stormwater is prevented from entering the sanitary sewer system. It goes back into private properties. And this is one of many locations where this has occurred. I don't have, sitting here, a solution. I know that we've had engineers look at it and staff look at it, and under our current program, I can't say that I have a good answer. I wish I could.
Mr. Wolf, what did HRG say? What would they recommend that needs to be done to this gentleman's property?
They suggested a clay dam, correct, Bill?
A clay dam where?
I would assume that the clay dam would be installed at the foundation where the sanitary sewer line enters into the property. That's usually a trench filled with stone, and water tends to follow the line of least resistance, which would be that trench. Again, I'm assuming, I don't know that off the top of my head at this point.
That is correct. That's what Mr. Klein stated.
And have you talked to HRG?
I did not speak to HRG personally. I've worked with Mr. Klein.
Okay.
He was checking to see if they would even entertain working it because they didn't want a conflict of interest with the township. I don't know how to express to you what it's like to live in a house where your sump pump has gone off as often as it does. In just the 15 minutes you've been here, it would have gone off 30 times.
Right, right.
So I have not I've reached out to a private company 2 weeks ago to see if they would look into putting dye and running a camera. And after being on the phone with him for a half hour, he said, Nick, honestly, you just need to go to the township. You already have everything that you need. It's a groundwater problem.
So you don't have over here, Nick, so you don't have the cost?
Sorry.
That's
Mr. Judd.
You don't have a cost estimate or anything like that?
I don't have a cost estimate, and I have no idea who would even do the work. I've asked.
Right.
No one even knows for who to call. I've put in.
This is interesting because it's, and I don't know, is George, or is the consensus, as you said, that the consensus is caused by the township not doing anything wrong, but by doing something right,
Correct,
by fixing a problem.
correct.
So we're not, so the consensus is kind of that is likely what's happening here.
Yes.
And it's
we-
happening on other properties to this extent?
We've had problems with similar results, yes.
Have there been remedies to that, or?
Typically, they've been private property owner remedies.
Okay.
Have we been cataloging or keeping track of the number?
Oh, I'm sure I
of
can
these?
give you locations, yes.
look.
But have they been doing pretty much the same solution?
We have had different solutions in different locations. If it's a sanitary sewer lateral that we are replacing, there have been locations where we have actually, the authority has actually installed clay dams. That's been with mixed results. There have been locations where we have installed a clear water system as well. This was neither one of those locations, and the results of all of those have been mixed, and we can certainly take you out and show you them on road tour, which would probably be appropriate at this point.
So we fixed other areas that were having problems.
We have done different types of treatment in other areas. Whether we've fixed them or whether those treatments have worked, I don't know.
Some of those were during lateral work where we were already digging up.
Correct. It's all been because of the lateral work, which is when we've done it.
Wow.
So we fixed one problem, but it sounds like we created another problem.
Correct.
In this gentleman's property.
Correct.
Which sounds to me like it was our fault.
The issue is stormwater is everywhere. Do you have a responsibility for stormwater on a lot that was inappropriately entering a sanitary sewer system and you closed your sanitary sewer system?
I just feel bad that he
I do
didn't,
too.
he didn't have water for 18 years. We did some work out there and now we're causing him to have headache. You know, not being able to go away, the sump pump running. Mr. Weaver, do you have something, please?
Just briefly, because I know you have a busy agenda tonight. As the board's aware, the sewer program has been going on for 10 years. We have about 15 years left. That's a 20-year program in Beaver Creek and a 20-year program in Paxton Creek. So we're just starting in Beaver Creek. So we have 25 million gallons of I&I that we removed in Paxton Creek, and we have another 25 million we have to remove in Beaver Creek. So when you take all this groundwater out of the sewer system, it has to go somewhere. But unfortunately, it's not only an engineering issue, it's a legal issue because the township doesn't own the groundwater. So essentially, once we have a court order to take the groundwater out of the sewer, so the judge says you have 20 years to get this groundwater out. Where it goes, we don't have the engineering expertise to advise the board where this groundwater is going, but most of the legal cases have found that the sewer authority doesn't own groundwater, and it's not their responsibility to control groundwater. Their responsibility is to make sure that groundwater doesn't enter the sewer system. So that's really our objective. So we work with people like Nick and other residents that have this problem, but it's only on a cursory level where we make recommendations of some engineers or legal people to talk to, but we don't really have any expertise or the legal authority to really assist them. So that's basically what we've been doing for the last 15 to 20 years as part of this program. So we haven't really fixed groundwater problems financially. As Mr. Wolf was saying, we've done some things with clay dams as we can, and there were some clear water systems that were installed in various parts of the township. That's a different scenario, but essentially groundwater on private property is their issue. We have 16,000 customers, and we have people, 6,000 to 7,000 people that have sump pumps, and how much they run, we don't really know. So we have about 3 or 4 properties in the last 5 or 6 years that have this situation where they are essentially draining the water for most of the neighborhood, as far as we can tell. But again, as far as engineering goes and the legal part of it, to this point, we basically have been told that we really can't provide any assistance in that regard.
I guess what he's looking for, Mr. Weaver, is an ultimate solution to
Right.
it. And is there anybody that you could direct him to contact?
We would probably work with GHD and HRG to see if they've have people that have done that kind of work before. Most of the people have just put in additional sump pumps. So if you have one sump pump, you don't have enough horsepower to pump all that water, then you have to put more. We have some properties have 3 or 4 sump pumps in them.
Wow.
So I think you only have one, correct? I have one. Right. So one of the solutions could be put 2 or 3 more sump pumps in.
So your suggestion is to have him contact, what, HRG?
We could do that on his behalf to see who they would recommend to contact for additional engineering services. But to this point, legally, we have not been able to do that.
The reason I
Do the
raise the
engineer
question, I
yourself.
see an HRG representative in the audience, but
Right.
Mr. Weaver, did I not hear you say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, certainly, that HRG, at least in part of their solution proposal, was the clay dam on his property?
Right. Clay
The-
dams
so
are
if
useful to
that
stop
is
the
a
water
s-
from getting there, but it's not 100% because
Understand, but if that is a solution, and again, it's probably in theory as opposed to reality, knowing for certain, but at least to that extent, that engineering has been completed with the idea that this would prevent or at least alleviate or reduce the amount of water he's having to do. And again, sir, you may even know this that I don't know. What kind of a cost is there attached to doing this clay dam that's being proposed by HRG to help alleviate the problem? I don't know that Mr. Weaver, maybe Mr. Weaver knows the answer, I don't know.
I don't know, but if I were to take a guess, I would say between $20,000 and $30,000. Because you'd have to rip up the storm drain.
Right.
And I wouldn't know.
How about more sump pumps? Is that something you've
A
considered?
sump pump,
Bigger?
I'd have to add another sump pump, I would imagine is probably, I mean, the actual device, it's more labor than anything. I'm guessing maybe $1,000 at the most, and then you need a backup to go with that. I'm open to any suggestion, and I
we're trying to
understand what
search as
Mr.
well.
Weaver's saying, but I also have to tell you, I've already spent thousands of dollars. And I know what the law states, but then there's also fairness. And Ms. Lindsay, I think, said very correctly, when you do something, you created this. And short of me, I don't even know if I could sell my house. I don't know what the value is. I could maybe start a water business. That's about it.
I mean, I don't even have a basement in my house, so this is, but would more pumps restore your quality of life? Because I know this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about your quality of life. Is it potential that more pumps, bigger pumps, are something you could, A, afford, and B, restore you to some normalcy?
It sounds like there's no 100% solution. I believe that that is something I would definitely consider if someone said that's what you should do.
Well,
But
it
I
sounds
think-
like it's either that or something, a serious, costly, detailed, engineering solution, which is still, I think, might have to be the case, I just think we have to explore, and I can tell Mr. Weaver is trying to be, he's mentioning the legal restraints and that there are many other sites in the township, and I think we're trying to be careful not to set a precedent that maybe we can't keep to consistently. And just, I think we would have to explore every possibility, including ultimately the township doing something.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we have Mr. Weaver have further discussions with HRG to see if we can maybe hone in on exactly what the problem is and what the solution might be, because we can't talk about remediating it until we know what the solutions are and what they cost. And also, it does strike me that this is the sort of thing that if we're going to enter into what is going to be an enormously expensive stormwater management program that we're all going to be paying for, that situations like this ought to be able to be addressed as part of that, given the amount of money that we're going to be spending. So that is a process that's being developed currently. So if we can keep this on the radar screen for that, it might not give you relief in the next couple of months, but it's something we could look at as a longer-range solution.
Yeah, but Loma, we're not looking for that till come 2019, and this is only February.
Yes.
That's a long time. Andrew, can I just put you on the spot? Would you be able to offer any solution? This is our township engineer from HRG.
Oh, great.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the exact situation here. Obviously, we've had some folks out there and looking at that. Has been stated, there's some different options you can look at to address the situation. There's probably no guarantee because with stormwater and groundwater, you just don't know where it's going to go all the time unless you dig up the entire neighborhood. But there are some probably evaluations we can make and some recommendations, I guess, depending on who's directing us to do that. We can certainly work that out with the township.
Okay. Sounds to me like we need to pursue this a bit further, so.
A real quick question. Is there a way you can test if it's an underground stream? Since they redid the soil, maybe a stream's got redirected. If he's getting water that much, I've worked with sub pumps in my own house. I know the frustrations, but never had the degree of this. So is there a way you can test if there's an underground stream going that way, and if you can determine that?
There are certainly hydrologic tests you can do. There are various methods to determine groundwater flow and things like that. Again, different evaluations and the complexity of them come into different costs, depending on the level you get involved with.
Well, let's take some time and some effort to study this a little bit further and see if we can come to some conclusions as to what the cause is and what the remedies would be. We don't want it to just fall off of the table here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I'm willing to do my fair share of what needs to be done as well.
Well, and I'm going to be right up front with you. I wouldn't want to live like that day to day either.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nick, you mentioned this to me a while ago, so I know, this is quality of life, and that's part of our job.
It's been a challenge. When the sump pump died, thank God I had a backup sump pump put in the day before. Literally, and I had a house full of people, and
Wow.
it's been a challenge. And if any of you want to come listen to my sump pump, you're welcome to. But thank you. I love this township, and I'm a citizen. Chris, you know what I do, and I appreciate everything and any assistance. As you can see, when they talk engineering language, that is out of my realm. I don't even know what that means. So anything you can do to assist would be appreciated.
Well,
Thank
we
you
haven't
for
solved
working
your
with
problem
us.
yet, but at least we get some engineering eyes in your direction. And hopefully that'll,
So, Mr. Wolf, you'll keep in touch with him, and then you can give Mr. Wolf your information, and Mr. Weaver and Mr. Klein, so you have everything. Okay. So we'll
Thank
be
you
in
very
touch.
much.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board on a matter that is not on the agenda for this evening? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any comments from board members?
I just represented the board last night at the Council of Government meeting over in Hampton Township. So a PP&L representative there talking about changing the lights to LED. And we also had McNeese and Wallace were there discussing compliance with bond issues. So that was it.
Any other members
No,
have
nothing.
comments?
Oh, I have one more thing. I'm sorry, Loman.
Sure.
Just remember February 27th at 6 o'clock. It'll be in the other room over there. We have Planning Commission meeting, and I urge all of the residents to please attend. So that's next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock.
Okay, with that, Mr. Wolf.
Yes, board members, just to piggyback on to Mrs. Lindsay. Mrs. Lindsay was referring to the Planning Commission as it's working on the comprehensive plan. And on the fourth Tuesday of every month, the Planning Commission meets beginning at 6 o'clock to work on the comprehensive plan. But the Planning Commission will have a first public presentation of the draft plan on Thursday, March 8th, beginning at 7 p.m. in this municipal center. There will be an informal open house where individuals can view plan contents on big boards beginning at 6:30 p.m. A draft of the comprehensive plan is available on the township's website, and you can receive a paper copy of the plan if you so desire at the municipal center during normal business hours. But again, the first public presentation of the plan will be Thursday, March 8th at 7 p.m. at this municipal center.
And that concludes your report?
That concludes my report. I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you very much. We are honored tonight to have with us a number of members of VFW Post 148. And Commander Stout, if you all would like to come to the podium and explain to us what you're doing, and then the supervisors will join you. Sir, if you want to come up to the podium, and all of you.
Township Manager, honorable supervisors, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. This is one of the more pleasurable things that we do around here when we're able to share things with the community. My name is Joe Stout, and I'm the commander of VFW Post 148, located 5802 Union Deposit Road, nestled in between your township maintenance facility and Dauphin County VOTEC there on the Union Deposit side. And I'd like to introduce my officers here. I have my senior vice, Patrick Shupp, and have my quartermaster, Bob Ketchum, and my chaplain, Donna Coulter. And we're here as part of the 250th celebration of Lower Paxton Township. We made a commitment to donate $2,500 to the township through our community services, which include, of course, the Lower Paxton Township Police Department and our 3 fire companies, Colonial Park, Linglestown, and Paxtonia, and, of course, South Central EMS. All of which do a fantastic job for our community, keeping us safe, providing emergency services for us, and we really appreciate it. Our primary goal as veterans of foreign wars, of course, is to support our veterans and veterans programs, but we're also part of the community, and so we want to do our part to support our community and support our citizens and our emergency services. So at this time, we have a check for $500 for each of our community services here, and I'd like to go ahead and present that now, if that's okay. We'll move over to the center here in front, if that's all right with you.
Come over to the center.
Okay.
And you can invite each service up individually. Of course, then you're going to be away from the microphone, but.
Who needs a microphone, right?
Well, we want the folks at home to hear you as well. So.
Okay. All right, then, we should do the presentations at the podium then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that it looks good to be in the middle, but folks can't hear you when you're in the middle. So.
And also, if you're at the podium, you're getting TV time.
TV
Yes.
cameras are not
Okay,
here.
all right, very well. So at this time, I'd like to have Lower Paxton Township come forward. Give me the.
Okay. Supervisors?
Okay. So it's an honor to present $500 to Lower Paxton Police Department. If we could have a representative from Lower Paxton Township Police, please come forward. Did he know he was doing this tonight?
We're always prepared.
Okay.
We're not
All right.
expecting it.
So on behalf of VFW Post 148, we'd like to present this check. I'm sure you'll give it to the Director of Public Safety, Chief Spots,
Make sure it gets where it
for
needs
us.
to go.
But thanks for what you do for our community, keeping us safe every day. And it's a real privilege to have our VFW post and live in this community where you all do a fantastic job. So please extend our gratitude to Chief and accept this check
Thank you very
on
much.
our behalf.
Thank you very much.
put me on the spot a little bit, but I'll be all right. That's okay. It really is an honor.
You're a corporal, you do fine.
I appreciate it. It's an honor to work in a community where the outpouring of community support, especially in times when things can be a little more negative than they have been in past years. It's an honor and privilege to work in an area where we feel the support a lot more than we feel the negativity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and please pass that along to
Absolutely,
the
sir.
rest of the officers.
Thank you for
of course.
thinking of us. I
You bet, no problem, our pleasure. So next up, if we could have a representative from Colonial Park Fire Company. We're going in alphabetical order with the fire companies because we have three, so we figured that would be a fair way to do it here. So, and representing Colonial Park Fire Company here is a longtime Marine, retired Marine First Sergeant, and also longtime Chief and volunteer with Colonial Park. So thank you for what you do in keeping our community safe. All of us pray every day that we never have a fire in our home or in our neighborhood that endangers us. But we have volunteers such as yourself that are always standing by at the drop of a hat to come and rush and save us in our time of need. So we appreciate it, and please use this funds as you see fit to provide services to our community.
The company.
Well, when I say you see fit, I mean the company.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, First Sergeant, now as a Sergeant Major here now, I didn't think I'd have to, okay, all right.
I remember when you were Lance Corporal.
That's okay.
On behalf of the fire company, we would thank you for these kind of gifts. And we also pray that we don't have to come to fire to your place.
Thank you very much, we appreciate that. So next up, we have Linglestown Fire Company. I grew up in Linglestown, right off of Linglestown Road, right down the street from the fire company. So seen these guys in action for many years. And keeping our community safe. And we're really honored to have three great fire companies in our community, all ready to go at a moment's notice and take care of our community. We really do have some we take for granted, but we really do have fantastic community here, and all of our volunteers that step up every day to keep us safe. So, on behalf of VFW Post 148, please accept this gift to use for your department. Keep our community safe.
Thank you very much.
Did you want to say anything?
No.
Like in the Marines, they always said use the 3 B's. Be brief, be brilliant, be brief. I usually just go with the first and the last. So at this time, I'd like to have Paxtonia Fire Company please come up. Anybody here from Paxtonia tonight? Okay. How about if you accept the check on behalf of Paxtonia Fire Company? These guys are the closest to where I live now, right on Jonestown Road there. So these guys are the ones that I'm looking to. And of course, they go flying past my house all the time there. I live right beside the old Lower Paxton School there. So major route for our fire companies and for our emergency services. And even though they wake me up in the middle of the night, it reminds me that if I was in need, I know they'd be there for me as well. So
We'll make
please,
sure they get this, and thank you very much on behalf of the Paxtonia Fire Company. And some of us have had to use their services, so we're really happy that they're there.
there you go. And you really appreciate it.
We
then.
really appreciate them. Yes.
Absolutely. And last but not least is South Central EMS, who also has their facilities co-located with Paxtonia. And I'm reminded by their services a lot when they go flying past my house. And, these are the guys that we really rely on to come and help us in our time of need. Whether it's a heart attack or, something happens, an automobile accident or whatever, these are the guys that come out and save lives every day. You guys really are heroes in our community, and we sure are glad to hear you. And like I said, I don't mind getting woken up in the middle of the night to know that you guys are out saving somebody's life. So please accept this gift to use for your services, and again, appreciate what you guys do. We really are lifesavers.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
mean, it's an honor to be part of this township.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of the township as well, so it's an honor to be part, not only a resident, but also serving the public.
And
Thanks,
please
Jason.
extend our gratitude to all the members of South Central EMS.
I sure will. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so with that, that concludes our services. And again, it's an honor to be here in this community with such great volunteers and also with our township management team, our supervisors and the rest of the management team here. Really appreciate what you guys do. And I know, you know, you guys usually get to deal with all the hard decisions and all the tough things. And this is an easy thing. And again, thank you for
Thank
what you
you.
all do. And it's an honor to be a part of our community.
Well, we thank you for
Thank
your
you.
service and what you've done for us in helping keep our country safe and sound. So,
Well, like we always said, in the military, we're the away team. Our law enforcement and our first responders are the home team. And when our military members are forward deployed around the world, we know that our communities and our volunteers, such as we have here in this community, take care of our families when we're away. So thank you again, and
Thank you, guys.
great,
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
great organization.
yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
very much.
Nobody does more for
Thank you.
veterans than
Thank
the
you so
VFW.
much. Thank you.
We're working VFW, although we do have a canteen.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Oh.
you.
A picture over there.
Pictures.
Picture.
All right.
Picture time.
Everybody?
Okay, squeeze it in. Hopefully you have to stand back.
I'll stand between you.
That's still too much.
Okay, let's go.
Little people up front,
They
big
were a
people
little
on the
off
back.
balance there. Squeeze.
I was gonna say, Lee, why don't, if we do have some front, Lee, you wanna come up front? Move in the front here, Bill? Don't wanna move in the front?
That's
There
there you go.
Short but tall and steady. Short but tall and steady.
Okay, now we're talking.
Okay.
One more here. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Well, thank you again to Post 148 and all the service that you rendered when you were in the service and the service that you continue to render on behalf of our community. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Service is a lifetime job.
Yes. Very good.
See you, Jason.
Well, that was the nice part. So, actually, we have another item to move on to here as we go to old business, and this is a pleasure also. We have another applicant for the newly formed Lower Paxton Township Historic Committee, and Robert H. Thomas Jr. is an applicant for appointment. So, is Mr. Thomas here? No? However, I would assume that he is a recommendation of the balance of the committee, and then we're getting a yes on that. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the action of an appointment to the Historical Committee of Robert H. Thomas Jr.
And I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we will appoint Robert H. Thomas Jr. to the Historical Committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And there you go. Does that bring us to full speed on the committee? Full. All right. Good. You have all your members, and we are ready to roll. Very good.
And March 1st is the meeting.
March 1st, that meeting will be here at the municipal building at At what time? 7 o'clock on March 1st here at the Municipal Building for anybody who might be interested in the work of the Historical Committee. Great. Good to see that getting up and running. And now, Mr. Stein will move to item B. We have action on a settlement agreement and general release between the township and David Spots.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before you for consideration this evening is a settlement agreement and general release between the township and David Spots. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, it is ready for action this evening.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Spots has asked that I read a brief statement into the record. Dave would like me to say that my law enforcement career has spanned over 42 years. I have truly enjoyed the police profession and the many honorable people I have had the privilege to know along the way. However, it is time to start a new chapter in my life. I am retiring from municipal policing and hereby resign as a Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police for Lower Paxton Township. It has been a distinct pleasure to serve the citizens of Lower Paxton Township. Again, that's from Mr. Spots.
Okay, thank you. We have before us a proposed settlement agreement and general release. Would any board member like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the settlement agreement and general release between the township and Mr. David Spots.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Any discussion by board members? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. And on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and the citizens of Lower Paxton Township, this board would like to express our deep appreciation to Public Safety Director David J. Spots. The board thanks him for his service to the township and to its residents, and we wish him well in all of his future endeavors. And with that, we will move on to item C. Mr. Wolf.
Yes, board members, item C is potential to amend the actuarial assumptions that are used to determine the financial requirements of the township's police and non-uniform employee pension plan. Board members, you discussed this item at your workshop meeting last week, and it's placed upon the agenda this evening so that direction can be given to the actuary so that our actuarial report can be completed and submitted to the Auditor General by the end of March. The actuarial assumptions that are proposed to be changed are the interest rate assumption, the salary scale assumption, the mortality assumption, mortality improvement projection assumption, inflation, disability, and retirement assumptions. Board members, as you understand, in changing these assumptions for the two pension plans, the minimum municipal obligation to the plan will increase, and it will increase substantially. The actuary has made a recommendation of intermediate assumptions, which will have a reduced effect upon the township financially, at least at the beginning of the process. Also in your packet this evening, you will find a memorandum from Alicia Knoll, who is the township's administrator for the pension plans, and she has provided her views on each of the assumption changes proposed by the actuary. In general, she has agreement, although there is some areas which she is not in complete agreement with the actuary on the changes of the assumptions. With that said, board members, this is an item that will become before you not only as we submit the actuarial valuations to the Auditor General, but also as we begin our budget process in September of 2018 for 2019, at which time the Board of Supervisors will accept the minimum municipal obligations for its two employee pension plans. With that said, board members, I'll be I'll attempt to answer any questions that you may have, and if not, some direction to the actuary is necessary at this time. It would be my recommendation that the board consider the interim, accepting the interim assumption changes as recommended by the actuary, given the memorandum that was provided by Ms. Knoll.
So the intermediate assumption would increase our required contribution then by how much?
That number, okay, I got too many pages open here, board members.
That 350?
It was roughly 350 versus 460.
If we approve the intermediate assumption, does that lock us in, or do we get locked in at the point where we do budgeting in September and through the end of the year?
It will lock you in for 2018. Every 2 years, you prepare an actuarial evaluation, and you can change your assumptions literally every 2 years. But once you have an actuarial report prepared, you have to live with it for 2 years. That would have been 2017, since our report wasn't complete by the date required on 2017. We used the old report. So you would be affected for 1 year, which would be 2018. Should you decide to again address your actuarial assumptions, you can do it again in the 2019 report.
Board members, questions, comments?
No, I'm ready.
We did discuss this rather
Right, we've
thoroughly
had this
at our
discussion.
workshop.
The other thing, board members, there is no requirement on your part to accept either the interim as recommended by the actuary or the full bore assumption changes recommended by the actuary. She is required to, by actuarial standards, present them to you. You're not technically required to accept them.
But if we don't do something, we're going to get behind.
Well, you are behind in both plans. Both plans have a combined status of level 1 distressed. That is not terrible in the state of Pennsylvania by any means. It means that both plans are funded between 70 and 80% of the required financial obligation. The non-uniform plan, I believe, is in slightly better shape than the police plan, but they're both comparatively in very good standing.
But Mrs. Lindsay brings up a good point.
Correct.
If we are not exactly where we need to be,
And we are not.
do we run the danger of falling behind over the next couple of years, and then we'll have an even bigger
gap to follow.
a bigger gap to
fill
down the road?
And I don't want to be in that position. And that's not fair to those who follow us.
Well, it's not fair. It's not fair to anybody involved,
Right,
which
especially the recipients.
especially recipients. But I mean, as difficult as it is to take that sort of a bite out of the apple this year, if we don't, would we be setting ourselves up for an even bigger bite down the road
Yep, I believe
to make
you.
up? Now, markets have been doing well, but we've had a lot of volatility in the last few weeks, and who knows where we're going to go to from here. So, do any board members have any suggestions or thoughts as to where you would like to go with this? Do we want to go with the full amount, the intermediate amount, or put this off for another year?
I think the intermediate's fine.
The one before us, the one before us is the intermediate.
Yes,
Right.
Right.
yes.
And
'Cause
that's the one that I would support.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with you.
That was where
Yeah.
we were leaning whenever we had the workshop session, was to go with an intermediate amount, which allows us to address the problem. And if we get another bite at the apple here a year from now, we can at that point see whether that was sufficient.
Just as a footnote, Mr. Chairman, I think you all recall that I left before this discussion took place last week. However, I was on the couch, was watching, and if need be, I was texting the chairman to say, give me some input, or I was responding. So I believe that I am up to date on the proposals before us, and I do support the middle road.
But you still cannot vote by text.
However, I understand that, even though I tried.
Although we're pleased that you're doing better and you're here.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is a consensus that we should go with the middle of the road. Would anybody like to transform that into a motion, Mr. Hahn?
Chairman, I'll move we approve the amendments.
It's in limbo.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Mr.
I'll try
Crispin,
again,
we
Mr.
did-
Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the amendments proposed to the actuarial assumptions of the police and non-uniform employee pension plans as identified by Mr. Wolf, and specifically the middle program that was proposed, which is the one identified in our agenda.
On the agenda, correct. Do we have a second?
It's second.
Mr. Hawk is second. Do we have any additional discussion, board members? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so approved. This now brings us to proposed ordinance number 1718, amending the residential retirement district of the zoning ordinance. Apparently heavy lifting. Both Mr. Wolf and Mr. Stein are going to address this. Which of you is going first?
I will start with a brief description. Board members, this ordinance amends Section 319 of the Residential Retirement District regulations. It begins with amending Section F, and the amendments are noted in your document. You have both a version that has all changes included, as well as a complete version with the changes in only document. Board members, following the changes in paragraph F, you move down to paragraph, it would be 20 and 21 of paragraph
One. The F1?
F1? Yes, you are correct. Those are the changes, board members. The first change specifically defines the fact that a residential retirement district shall be limited to residents and mixed-use development that serve the needs of people 55 years of age and older with significant disabilities. RRD development promotes a continuum of care, and a minimum of 75% of the overall tract area of the RRD shall be for residential, assisted living, personal care, or nursing home, or common open space use. The previous ordinance did not have the 75% requirement. There was no minimum requirement for residential development. This makes a requirement that 75% of any RRD development be for residential purposes, benefiting individuals aged 55 and older. Then, board members, in paragraphs, in items number 20 and 21, further down, you'll find that the maximum development density is included with a definition and basically a requirement that the maximum density be 6 dwelling units per acre. Which previously did not exist in the ordinance. And then it also provides for, in 21, a density bonus should certain standards be made of an additional half a unit per acre. Board members, you'll see in your text, if you're looking at the addition of the ordinance that has all changes, you'll see red, which were the changes before review by the Dauphin County Planning Commission, and then blue are additional changes, which are basically grammatical and format in nature and do not change the intent of the ordinance, indicated as well. Board members, this ordinance has been advertised for public hearing tonight. It's been reviewed by your Township Planning Commission and recommended for approval. It's been reviewed by the Dauphin County Planning Commission and recommended for approval, subject to the format and grammatical changes noted in blue in the first document in your packet. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to address them. If not, it would be time for Mr. Stein to conduct a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a time and date set for the public hearing on Ordinance 17-18, which would amend the residential retirement district of the zoning ordinance. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 17-18? Seeing no response, Mr. Chairman, it would be in order at this time then to close the public hearing on Ordinance 17-18, and the board may take action if it so desires.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. We have before us proposed ordinance 1801. Proposed ordinance 1718, amending the residential retirement district of the zoning ordinance. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve ordinance 2017-18, amending the residential retirement district of the zoning ordinance as presented.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Judd. Do board members have any comments or questions regarding the proposed ordinance? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Mrs. Lindsay will be,
I do not agree with some of the language in some of the other paragraphs.
okay. So noted. That then brings us to Ordinance 1801, establishing an on-lot sewage management program. Again, Mr. Wolf and Mr. Stein.
Board members, this ordinance is designed to ensure that on-lot septic systems in Lower Paxton Township, which are probably 10 to 20% of properties within our community for residential purposes, have functioning septic systems and are ensured that maintenance is provided to those systems. The ordinance itself contains definitions which are brought to us and from the Pennsylvania Code of Ordinances that require on-lot sewage facility systems and regulate them. From those definitions, there is an applicability provision, which basically means that this ordinance applies to on-lot systems. There are permitting provisions. There's required inspections of systems when there's believed to be malfunction. There's operating provisions for said systems and maintenance provisions for said systems. And there's also a requirement on system rehabilitation should a system be found to be in disrepair and required to be rebuilt. The township has the ability to establish liens for systems that are dysfunctional and have to be forced into compliance, and as well as what happens to basically what comes out of septic systems when tanks are pumped and where it is disposed of. Basically, there needs to be proper tracking of that waste material. Board members, that's a brief summary of the ordinance before you this evening. It has previously been presented in a workshop session, although that may have been last year. With that said, if there are any questions, I attempt to address them. If not, this is ready for public hearing.
I guess, what is the scope of this? How many residents would be affected?
Again, approximately 20% of all properties in the township are not, developed properties are not connected to sanitary sewer. So you're looking at maybe 2,500 to 3,000 residential dwelling units and some non-residential units as well.
Is this going to be a major change in the way they?
It's going to require, essentially what it will require is property owners on a 3-year basis to make sure that a qualified septic person pumps their tank and performs normal maintenance. I would hope that most property owners are doing that, but if they don't,
Right.
they're going to have to.
Will we have somebody, Mr. Wolf, that goes around and checks that? Will they have to supply a certificate?
Certificates of compliance will have to be provided by the firm that is, any firm that does the septic tank inspection and tank pumping. As well as we will inspect for non-compliance if we have notice thereof.
And will the sewer department be taking care of that?
This
or-
will be a sewage enforcement officer, and we have contracted with GHD to provide those
Okay,
services.
so that's, okay.
Any additional questions for Mr. Wolf?
I would like to note, board members, there will be a resolution coming after, should the board adopt this ordinance, that will establish fees for various portions of the ordinance in regard to permits and inspections and so forth.
Which will help pay for the inspection?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, how soon would that come into compliance with regard to the implementation date of this, so that we have the rates in place?
We'll have the rates for you at the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Then that way, that when the implementation date, everything
Correct.
is in place, both the ordinance and the rates. Okay, fine. Okay, ready for motion?
Mr.
Oh,
We
we need to-
have to have a hearing. Yeah. Mr. Stein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is time and date set for the public hearing on Ordinance 18-01, which would establish an on-lot sewage management program. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 18-01? Seeing no response, Mr. Chairman, it would be in order at this time to close the public hearing on Ordinance 18-01, and the board may take action if it so desires.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. The hearing has been held. Would anybody like to make a motion relative to proposed ordinance 1801?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve ordinance 2018-01, which establishes the on-lot sewerage management program as presented by Mr. Wolf.
It has been moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Do board members have any additional comments or questions? Mr. Weaver, do you wish to speak to the ordinance?
Sorry,
No.
it's coming up in advance for the.
Oh, you're coming up in advance for the next one. Okay.
That happened, I apologize.
I thought maybe you had some words of wisdom to add to the.
No, sir.
All right. Well, in any event, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1801. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. And now, Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
We're going to talk about a change order.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your packet, you'll find change order number 4, which is a final change order for the mini basin BC 4A BC sanitary sewer replacement contract with Michael F. Ronka and Sons for your consideration this evening. Attached is also the backup provided by GHD. Kevin Shannon is here this evening, and Tim Nolt, our sewer system engineer who manages the construction of the project, is also here to answer any questions that you may have on change order number 4. There is a brief description that's provided in the change order. Description number 1 essentially is the final adjustment of the change order to adjust the final contract price based on the revision of estimated quantities compared to the actual quantities installed. Secondly, additional payment for outstanding claims. Third is a retainage credit of $17,967.11 for uncompleted punch list items. And lastly, this change order will extend the substantial and financial completion dates. Essentially, the contractor had some delays with the project. As you're aware, Jonestown Road was a challenging area with concrete removal and busy area for construction, along with the AMP property. There's also a map that's provided in your packet, and for the members in the audience tonight and at home, this area is just south and north of Jonestown Road at the Paxtonia Elementary School, which included the AMP property, Carnes, Heatherfield, that general area. So the project was substantially complete in May of 2017. We had some delays in resolving the outstanding claims, and the final payment revision date is March 1st, 2018. And that concludes my report on change order number 4, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Kevin and Tim are also available.
Do we have any questions?
No, this is a very easy one.
Is it-
Actually, Kevin, could you produce more change orders like this one? Yes. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would be very pleased to make a motion to approve change order number 4 to the contract with Michael Ronka and Son for the BC 4A B&C sanitary sewer mini basin project with a reduction of $265,591.75 attributed to Kevin's good work.
That was a mouthful. Well done. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Lindsay. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I assume nobody's opposed?
Yeah. Mr. Weaver, I wouldn't want to give Kevin all the credit because you work very closely with us in monitoring and working with our staff. Thank you very much for your effort. It's very nice to be able to see a change order that goes in the opposite direction because 80% of what we receive are always increases. So thank you for your efforts.
It's also a pleasure to not have construction on Jonestown Road after all of that. Okay, now we are going to talk about the 2018 roadway paving program, and we have bids for that. Mr. Wolf?
Yes, board members, staff and the township engineer opened bids last week for the 2018 roadway paving program. The low bid, including alternates, was submitted by Pensy Supply. There were 4 bidders in total. Pensy's bid is in the amount of $1,168,821.32. when you include the base bid plus the alternate plus alternate two, alternates 1 and 2. The base bid was $865, $688 and 47 cents. The Albany Road alternate was $171, $741.50, and the Jonestown Road East alternate was $131, $391.41. It's staff's recommendation that the board award the base bid plus these two alternates with budgeted funds plus carryover funds in the township's liquid fuels account. We will have sufficient funds to do the total paving work of $1,168,821.38. And this bid that we've received is significantly below the engineer's estimate of over $1.4 million. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them. If not, this item is complete for your action this evening.
Have we used,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
The item 3, third portion of Jonestown Road, is that the paving of the other half of the road?
Well,
or is this
it's-
a different segment?
Paving of the west half
Yes.
is already included in. Paving of the east half will be from the bridge project that will go to construction this summer to where paving stopped at about Devon Road previously.
But does this includes the paving, like from the old Amp property or from the Charlton Church going
That's in the base bid,
west?
yes.
That was in the base bid?
Right.
So that's not what we're talking about
No.
with the add-on. That's,
The add-in, essentially with this work, both the base bid and the alternate, Jonestown Road, which is referred to as Old Jonestown, will be completely repaved from Route 22 through to the Jonestown Road Bridge.
excellent. Mrs. Lindsay, you
So I
had,
had a question. George, the alternate 3 of Devonshire, will that be put on for next year?
Yes, we will keep that in our tickle folder for the upcoming paving project,
And have we used Pensy Supply for paving before?
multiple times.
Okay, just making sure. Okay.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Good. Then we will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve the 2018 paving bid for roadway construction to Pensy Supply for their base bid of $865,688.47, and for alternates 1 and 3, combining that would be $303,132.91. And if my math is correct, the total would be for $1,168,821.38.
I believe that is correct. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Judd. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question for,
Yes. Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Hawk.
We have other roads that are under consideration, such as South Arlington and Londonderry, that will be.
We have a complete list of roadways that are included in the base bid of amount of around $860-some thousand. Off the top of my head, I don't know what they all are, but there are multiple roads, yes, that are included.
Well, Suez is still working on Londonderry Road, so till that's, it wouldn't be appropriate to pave it.
Understand. And they will have rehab work that they'll have to do, if not repaving, as part of their
Yeah.
project.
I travel Londonderry Road, so I just want to make sure that I was on the same page.
And unfortunately, we paved that a couple of years ago, and they had to dig it up. So what a shame.
Mr. Crispin?
my question is simple. Mr. Wolf, do you know when this project will commence?
Typically, we do roadway paving midsummer.
Is there do we anticipate that will be finished before the harsh
Oh,
winter next year?
Absolutely,
Good.
absolutely.
Before holidays and holiday traffic?
Should be completed by, I'm going to say September.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let us now move to items under new business, item C. We have 4 resolutions authorizing the acquisition of temporary and/or permanent easements to facilitate the Claremont Storm Sewer project. Mr. Stein is going to handle this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you are resolutions 18-06 through 18-09, which would authorize acquisition of temporary easements and also, I believe, a permanent easement so that the Claremont stormwater project can be undertaken. If you have any questions about those resolutions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, they are ready for action this evening.
Do we have any questions on the proposed resolutions?
No. We need to move forward.
Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve resolutions 2018-06, 2018-07, 2018-08, and 2018-09, which authorizes the acquisition of the temporary and/or permanent easements to facilitate the Claremont Stormwater Project.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll then move on to subdivision and land development. We do have a preliminary and final subdivision plan for Dorothy J. Wilkinson at 4902 Orchard Street.
Yes, board members, this plan is presented to you, and for whatever reason, my screen just went extremely small. Excuse me one second.
Here. Here.
Okay, thank you. The preliminary plan is, again, as Mr. Henry noted, is at 4902 Orchard Street. It proposes to subdivide, and I'll show you right here, this area, this long area here, from this lot, and give it to this lot. The lots in question are owned by family members. The larger lot, which is approximately half an acre, is giving the smaller lot the strip, because a smaller lot a long time ago built a garage down here in the corner and expected that this transaction had occurred, which it hadn't. So this is a simple lot line adjustment. It did require 3 variances. They were obtained by the zoning hearing board. And to approve this plan, board member, there are 4 waiver requests that you would have to approve as well. But simply, board members, this is a lot line adjustment, and the current lot line is right here, and it's moved to right here, so that the house on this lot can have the garage that it owns on this lot.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah. You have to go.
Come to
Yes.
there you go.
I'm Susan Buffington. My mother is Dorothy Wilkinson, and I have power of attorney. This is my brother, Donald Wilkinson, and just try to make it, it's not a garage.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
Yeah.
Sorry, is that better?
Okay, thank
Get a
you.
little closer, yeah.
Okay, it's not a garage, it's actually a driveway.
Driveway, I'm sorry.
She had given him 25 feet to make his property a little bigger for his little driveway. And she started this a couple years ago and didn't follow through with the surveying. And now that she's very ill, and my brother has his house sold, but we have closing on March 15th. So this didn't come to light until we tried to close back in October, that we had to have all this taken care of. So hopefully we've done everything we needed to do and still have our closing on March 15th. And Mr. Bard is our surveyor, so he's here. If you have any questions, he's here to help.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
I have, I need to go through this, and this will be straightforward. Either you or someone needs to respond. This is going to be rather simple, but it needs to be memorialized.
Yeah.
Do you perchance have a copy, either you or someone have a copy of the letter that we do that has the waiver requests on it and the administrative comments and general comments that also are accompanied by the 21 comments from HRG? I just need someone to ask to respond to them. I'm hoping that you do, so we can make this real fast and easy.
He does, okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed to make sure it's fit real easy.
Okay.
Do you have a copy of what we're looking at?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My name is Mark Bard from Altland. I can get that out here for you.
All right, my first question, Mark, is are you able to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Because in this, it does indicate that there are 3 variances, which, again, everyone's, I'm sure, is accepted. You have the 4 waiver requests, and it's all supported by staff. There are 4 administrative comments. Can you assure the board, have these all been completed, or will they be completed in a timely fashion acceptable to the township?
They have all been completed and are on this plan.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
And then the biggie is in the general comments, comment number 2 has 21 comments that are coming from Jason Hines from HRG. Have all of those comments either been satisfied or will be satisfied in a timely fashion acceptable to township officials?
Yes, sir.
Makes it real easy. Thank you very much. And thank you for speaking on behalf so that helps them get through all the red tape.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, Mr. Chairman,
We are out of red tape.
we're out of red tape.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve the preliminary and final subdivision plan for Dorothy J. Wilkinson at 4902 Orchard Street. The variances have already been approved. They don't need to be. The 4 waiver requests will need to be approved. The 4 administrative comments and the 2 general comments, including item 2, which includes the 21 comments from HRG that have all been completed.
It has been moved that we accept the preliminary and final subdivision plan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Mrs. Lindsay. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess you can go to closing. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hope your mother gets to feeling better as. Oh, well, our sympathies on that, and hopefully she'll remain as comfortable as possible for the foreseeable future. But
And thank you for sitting
thoughts.
through the meeting.
yes.
We've been here for an hour and a half. Thank you. Yeah. Please join us again.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
thank you for having good assistance because we got through the paperwork real quickly. So you could thank him.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple of improvement guarantees.
Yes, a new and an extension. Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the 2 improvement guarantees as presented.
been
Mr.
mo-
Chairman, I have a question
Yes.
for Mr. Wolf. The 3-story hotel, refresh my memory. Sunnycrest Drive.
That would be off of Briarsdale. The,
Oh, over, okay,
Yeah.
behind the McDonald's.
Right.
Okay.
That's a new one.
And Spring Creek Hollows is where?
Spring Creek Hollows is built,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right there in the
They're
corner.
right on the corner. Gotcha. We just have these little developments and popping up, so.
that's the fine line, large lot.
Right. There's
development.
like 5 houses there that are going to be, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's been
Fine
going.
line.
That's why I'm sure the extension is being requested.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That brings us to payment of bills for Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, I make a motion that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township and Lower Paxton Township Authority.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Does anybody on the board or the manager have any additional announcements?
Nothing further.
Hearing nothing additional, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.